What up, heavy mommies, and welcome to another episode of the Cosmic Perspective podcast. And as you can see, things look a little different than they used to look. I'm recording this now on my new camera, and I'm doing it here in the studio in a little bit different of a way. And it's funny how long it's been, and it's funny how a break that really was never supposed to be this long turned into what it did. And I can give you a little bit of context on that. I don't know how much you guys care, to be honest, but, life's been crazy, man. Coronavirus, the George Floyd, murder and all the protests and all that. Just everything, the world's in a very chaotic state at the moment. And I'm very happy to see that that America specifically is finally really addressing. Well, I mean, I don't even know if they really are, because we're only getting symbolic representation or symbolic gestures. But at least on some level, people are acknowledging, the hurt in the black community. So shout out to all my black brothers and sisters. I support you. Black Lives Matter. This isn't even a controversial statement to say. It shouldn't be. But yeah, so anyway, all of these things have contributed to me not wanting to post a podcast, as well as me really kind of searching deep in my soul of like, what am I doing? What am I in this for? Why am I doing it? And the more I thought about it, the more I realized some of the, I guess, toxic aspects of my schedule and how I was like treating the podcast and how I was treating content creation in general, as well as juggling with my personal life. So yeah, a lot of factors have kind of played into the fact that I have not posted in a while. And one of the big ones is burnout. And I've been in pretty much an endless cycle of burnout. I don't even know if I would say my whole life, but I would for sure say for the entire time that I've tried to make content, I've always been in this cycle. And I would find momentum, and I would be able to, post for a while, and I'd be able to do it for a few weeks or a few months or whatever. And then I would inevitably burn out. And I think a big part of that was that I was creating a schedule and then making my life conform to the schedule, even though I created it. I made the schedule up. But I wanted to conform my life to a schedule based on like, well, I want to release on this day and blah, blah, blah. Ignoring the fact that I have a lot of things in my life that might make that date unreasonable, right? Like maybe it's somebody's birthday one week, or, maybe on another day, I have other obligations, or I got to do groceries or laundry or whatever, right? And so sometimes I can't always squeeze in, or sometimes I'm not in the mood to record something. And I think you guys can all agree that you don't really want me to record if I'm not in the mood, right? Like, you're not going to get a good piece of content out of it. So it's, it's kind of defeating to do that. And the reason why I didn't come back sooner, initially for the podcast specifically, because I launched my gaming channel, was because I was trying to, I wanted to rebrand the visuals and stuff. I really wanted, new graphics, and I wanted a new logo. And I still do. But then it just has become more complicated than I initially set out to be. I hired an artist to make me a logo, and the logo was cool. And the logo was exactly what I asked. And the artist is very talented. So, shout out to them. It's no disrespect to them that I don't want to use it. But I don't want to use that logo. I don't think it represents what my podcast actually is. I think it's a cool piece of art on its own, but I don't think it fits my brand, or whatever you want to call it. I don't think it fits what this podcast is. And so I kind of scrapped that. And then I was like, well, I don't want to come back until I have an actual logo. And then I didn't really want to pay another artist if I wasn't 100% sure what I wanted out of the logo. So for part of it, I used that as an excuse to not post. Really, it was the fear. It was definitely a fear of failure. And failure is such an important teacher. It really is. It's such an important teacher. And failure has taught me a lot of things along this creative process and this journey. And I've spent a lot of time really overthinking things. I've spent a lot of time obsessing over, like I said, the schedule, or obsessing over, posting and promoting and marketing and hating the marketing. I've hated every minute of marketing. I fucking hate that part. That's my least favorite part of making content. And I feel like I was always battling myself. I was kind of having my own internal battle of like, I like doing the podcast. I like actually speaking to people. I like having the conversations. I like being able to go off the top here with you guys. I don't plan these things. I don't write them. This is me just like, I have a general idea of what I want to talk about, and I just kind of riff. And I felt like I was always battling something. I felt like I was always just self-conscious about stuff. I was definitely self-conscious. Especially like, I'd post something and like I would, I have some hot takes, man. I'm passionate and I believe in what I'm saying. And sometimes I'm going to say something that I know might piss some people off. And I get self-conscious about it. And so a number of those things have all kind of played into the fact on why I just didn't post, and I didn't feel like it. And I had recorded some and scrapped them. And, I recorded like a bunch of them and scrapped them. And eventually I just stopped recording them. I mean, this is literally my first time even attempting to record a new podcast in probably a couple months at least. So yeah, it's been a weird long hiatus, and I never intended to take this long. But I think the things that I've found and the things that I've learned about myself in this time has been really important. And one of the things that I recently watched, it's called Becoming Nobody. It's a documentary about Ram Dass, and it features an interview with him back when he could speak better. He had like strokes and stuff, so his speech kind of towards the end of his life was not as coherent and a lot harder to kind of get through. But I was watching that, and he talked about this concept of somebodyness and the concept of becoming nobody. And I thought this concept was really important to me because oftentimes, we get into certain things based on the somebodyness of that thing, right? So some people become lawyers because they want people to be like, ooh, you're a lawyer. Or like, some people become doctors because they're like, ooh, you're a doctor. Like, and like your parents might push you to that of like, ooh, my son is a doctor. My son's a lawyer, whatever the fuck it is. And we often use this, it's very egoic motivation. And it's not necessarily true to who you are. It's not necessarily true to like yourself. It's not true to like your higher being at all. And it is purely for the vanity. And I started thinking, I'm like, well, am I doing this podcast because I want the vanity of it? That I want to be, ooh, you're a podcaster. Ooh, you're a YouTuber. Like, is that why I was doing it? And on some level, yeah, probably. I've always grounded this podcast in that I genuinely want to provide an insight or a perspective that people don't hear. So that's always been like at the root of it, that's always been it. But then another thing that comes with that is like the exclusive knowledge thing, right? Like, ooh, I'm going to share some shit with you that you don't know, And so it's like, ooh, I'm an in crowd. Come into my in crowd with me. You're a heavy mommy now, And I think I wasn't fully honest with myself about the motivations of that, right? Of that I was seeking validation through you all. I was seeking validation from you all to say, yes, Kevin, what you're doing is important. Yes, Kevin, you're doing a good job. Yes, Kevin, I really admire you. Yes, Kevin, like all of those things. And those things are really superficial, and they were never going to fulfill me. They were never going to make me happy. And I think that's where when the schedule became stressful for me and it was hard for me to meet deadlines, and then I would push back things or I'd procrastinate purely based on the fear of having to meet the deadline. I was like scared. I was scared that I was like not going to be able to post in time, or that I wasn't going to meet the deadline that I set for myself, which was an arbitrary date. And it just was toxic. It just was not good for me, and the way that I described it to one of my friends was that it was like I was driving around with holes in my tires. And so what I would do is I would drive around, and eventually I would hit rim at some point, and it wouldn't be right away. It would be a slow leak. And then when I would hit rim, I would realize like, damn, like I need to take a minute, I need to stop, and I need to reinflate the tires. And so I would reinflate the tires, but I never patched up the tire. It was still leaking, still had a hole in it, but I would reinflate it and it would go for a little bit, and I'd drive for a couple miles, and then I'd break down again, and then I would go and I'd fill it up again, and then I'd drive for a couple miles. And it was like this endless cycle of me just like, running on an energy that wasn't unlimited and running on an energy that really wasn't sustainable. It was just not even the right kind of energy. It wasn't the right kind of motivation. And I've been close to understanding this numerous times. I've known that I've dealt with burnout, and I've known that I need to do this because I love doing it and not because of, wanting it to be an escape from a regular job or, whatever. And it wasn't. I wasn't honest about it. I wasn't honest about it with you all, but I also wasn't honest about it with myself. I didn't even know. You know what I mean? So it's like I wasn't honest with you guys, but it was really because I wasn't even honest with myself. And I think now I'm understanding, and I don't know that I have the answers or that I'm even like, I don't even know that I know what to do yet. But I know for sure that I'm having more clarity around the actual reality of my situation and the reality of how I'm feeling. So that is why I have not posted in a while. And I that's why I've always had that problem where I'll post for a little bit and then I'll run out of gas and then it takes forever for me to start back up again. So I'm not going to promise you that I'm going to release on a specific schedule. I'm not going to promise you that I'm going to be consistent or regular with this. I'm not going to promise you anything. I'm not going to promise you anything, and I'm not going to promise myself anything. I want to do this stuff because I want to do it, and I want to do it when I want to do it. And I want to be more forgiving of the fact that I do have a full-time job, and I do have a life outside of this, and I have a girlfriend, and I have to make sure that, I'm living life to the fullest. I want to appreciate all aspects of life. And for too long, based on this idea of somebodiness, I was identifying with what I did. I identified as, I'm a podcaster. I'm a YouTuber. And that's not who you are. You are not what you do. You are the sum of all the actions that you might take in various situations, for sure. You could certainly make the argument that, you are what you do repeatedly, but you are not your career. And your value and your sense of self-worth is not based off of that. And for too long, it was for me. I was basing my self-worth and I was basing my value based off of whether I had been making content and posting it, which is like, when I say it out loud, I'm like, dude, you're an idiot, but it makes sense, right? Because for my desire to be somebody, I'm doing this stuff and it's something that makes me special, right? I'm making content, I'm doing something unique, I'm carving out my little cut on the internet, and it gives me some semblance of uniqueness, some semblance of being special. And what really fucks people up is that from a young age, people can tell you that you're going to be something. And although that is an encouraging thing on the surface, it's actually creating an expectation. And it is creating this idea in your head that, for example, I was in gifted, whatever that means. I was put in the gifted classes. That doesn't mean shit in my eyes, but I was put in the gifted classes, and in the gifted classes, there's an expectation that you're gifted, that you're smart, you're a genius or whatever the fuck. And, that's based off of somebody's metrics, and maybe some of those metrics have some merit to them on where maybe you are really good at pattern recognition, or maybe you really are good at math or science or whatever. But that doesn't represent you as a whole. That doesn't represent your entirety of your being. That is certainly an aspect of your intelligence, but there's many different forms of intelligence, and not all of them are going to be scholastic. So for me, at a young age, I was told I was gifted. And people would tell me I'm smart, and people would validate my intelligence because I spoke eloquently, or because I do have good grasps of various subjects. And so I can appear to be this intelligent person, and sometimes I'll drop some wisdom for you all. And so people will be like, oh, well, you're wise, you're smart, or whatever. And they're gassing up this projection of me that then I am internalizing within myself. I'm like internalizing, like, oh yeah, I am. Maybe I am this, just because people told me it and it made me feel good, and like part of that was because when I was a kid and I was being bullied in elementary school, that they made me feel like I was less than. They made me feel like I wasn't good enough. So when people would tell me that I was good enough, that like gave me validation, and that gave me a reason to believe like, oh, I am something. Those people who made fun of me when I was a kid, they were wrong. See, all these other people recognize my value. And I was basing my value off of those things. And it wasn't even conscious. And I like to think I'm a pretty introspective person. I think about these things. I'm always going on the internal stuff to the point where it's to my detriment. I overthink these things. And in the process of recognizing my seeking validation and my desire for somebodyness, I am now understanding that, one, that was never going to make me happy, and that was obviously like a false god to be chasing. But another thing is that I am not even those things. Like those things that people told me that I am, they don't necessarily know. That was just their perception based on a moment with me. They shared a moment with me, and based on that moment, they were able to make a conclusion that they drew about me, and then projected it onto me, and then I would accept that and I would internalize it, and then that became a part of me and I would identify with it. And I think all of those things are really easy traps to get into. It's very much a human thing. I don't even fault myself for it, because I understand that in our culture, we are always trying to be a somebody, right? America's all about that. Like America's all about go be a millionaire, go be rich and whatever. And I think that's part of our sickness and our culture too, is that we worship celebrities and this somebodyness, and we overly emphasize the elites in our country or the scientists, or and I love scientists. I believe in science. I'm not trying to say that, but I'm saying that we hype certain people up. We hype up lawyers, we hype up doctors, we hype up scientists, we hype up important people, we hype up media people, we hype up a lot of different types of people, and we actually disparage other people, right? Essential workers. We learned who the essential workers are in the COVID-19 crisis. We now understand that some of the most important people are the people that you thought, weren't good enough to wipe your ass. Now, I never had that view. I understand working class people. I'm a working class person. My parents are working class people, but I do understand that there is a mentality of some people believe that they are better than other people, and they believe that, your grocery worker or your average retail worker, whatever, is less than you. And we've now learned that without those motherfuckers, you wouldn't get your shit. You wouldn't have your food. You wouldn't be able to survive. And although we're still not paying them enough money, I think at least on some level our society has had to reckon with that. The reality is that some of the people that we rely on are the people who are some of the hardest workers who don't make any money, who don't make nearly enough money for the amount of work that they put in. So I think for me, learning these lessons has been really important, and it's what allowed me to even be able to record this episode right now. I've come to grips with that. I do want to make this content, but I don't want to feel pressured about it, and I don't want to be overwhelmed with it. I want to truly enjoy it for what it is. I want to enjoy the process. This should be fun, dude. This is my creative outlet. I like to be able to talk and talk about these ideas that, I want to put it out in the universe and get feedback and have a dialogue and a conversation. And I'd love to have you guys, respond in the comments and say, hey, I listened to this and I really thought about that, or whatever. I want an engagement. I want to build a community here. When I say, what up, heavy mommies, I'm trying to create heavy mommies. I want the heavy mommies to be this awesome community of like-minded individuals who want to better themselves, who want to learn new things, who want to go deep and do the work introspectively and, discover who they are. And I'm never going to be somebody who's going to provide you answers. I'm going to ask questions out loud that I'm asking about myself, and hopefully those questions prompt your own questions for yourself, right? We all have our own questions and we all have our own answers. and we can learn from other people's questions and answers, but we have to understand that, we have our own stuff that only we're going to be able to figure out, So for me, I think it's really important that I am doing something creative, but I think it's also really important that I don't treat it like a job, because at the end of the day, this isn't a job. It doesn't make me any money. I'm doing this because I enjoy doing something creative. I like using my equipment. I like using the camera and the microphones and all that. I just enjoy it. I enjoy the production process, but I don't like the marketing, which is the businessy part of it. And I don't like, the uploading, and to be honest, editing a podcast is not that fun. I'd much rather edit a film. Editing a film at least has some, you got to be creative, but editing a podcast is pretty this, for example, this is like a one take, one shot. The only editing that I'm doing for this episode is going to be, finding clips and taking little segments out. So yeah, so it's been a minute. That's what's going on with me. And, a lot's going on in the world, huh? So Donald Trump gets COVID-19. I mean, it's poetic justice, dude. It's poetic justice. As of right now, as of the time I'm recording it, he still, I still believe that the steroids are still working. But once those steroids wear off, I'd be very curious to see where his condition is, because he didn't sound good in that Hannity interview. He's doing a lot of coughing. He was doing a lot of coughing. Okay. But I got to say that the doctors at Walter Reed were tremendous. I love socialized medicine when it's only for me and my rich buddies. But yeah, fuck Donald Trump. So yeah, this is pretty straightforward. Fuck Donald Trump. He's denying motherfuckers money. He's denying all of us money because of his own arrogance and ego. By the way, it's a fucking election loser to do that. I mean, I don't want to help your campaign at all, Trump, because I fucking hate you, but literally horrible strategy, guaranteed losing. And by the way, he's gonna lose. I mark my words. I'm predicting it right now. He's gonna lose. It's not even close. Okay, I get that 2016 has scared some people because they believe that Trump can somehow pull out Hail Marys all the time. No. He's got no shot, bro. And the reason why is because all the swing states are not as close as they were with Hillary. The lead that Biden has is much higher than before. And Trump specifically has lost old people's vote. He's lost a lot of old people's vote in a way that normally that was his best range. So I look forward to seeing Donald Trump lose in November. It won't be on the 3rd. We'll probably find out a little bit later because of the delayed ballots and stuff. I am reluctantly voting for Joe Biden. I don't like Joe Biden. You guys know that. I was a Bernie guy. But I'm sorry. We got to get this motherfucker out of here. And although I don't think we're going to be able to push Joe Biden on that many issues, I think we can at least push him on a couple, and we're at least not going backwards with him. We're just going to barely go forwards. So it's not a ringing endorsement of Joe Biden. I don't think he's going to be our savior. I think he still is snubbing the left all the time in an unnecessary way. But at the same time, Donald Trump is a literal fascist. So, I mean, lesser of two evils. It's, again, I'm tired of that being the choices, but it is, again, we have to take the lesser of the two evils. This is truly a different case. Trump really is a lot worse than your typical Republican. But a lot, I don't know. It's like he's worse, but he's not that much worse, but he is worse. He'll do some things that even the Republicans won't do because they know about decorum and I think that stuff is bullshit. And I think the Democrats need to stop being so weak, and they need to actually just not even try to negotiate with the Republicans, because I mean, they're never going to be reasonable. They're never going to argue in good faith. I mean, you got to just give up that that's ever going to happen. They're not reasonable. What else? I definitely wanted to give you guys an update. What else has happened? Well, there's been so much shit that's happened this year. I don't even know how to keep up with all of it. So for anybody who doesn't know, I have a gaming channel now, and that's been fun. I've been doing some Let's Plays, and Let's Plays are interesting. They're fun. It's kind of like a long, it's a long thing. Like, so I don't know. I don't know how long I'll do Let's Plays or if I'm going to try other kinds of gaming content. That's kind of open in the air at the moment. I'm still very much in the beginning stages, and I don't feel obligated to have to do anything in particular. If I have an interest in doing a review of a game, then cool, then I guess I'll do that. If I have an interest in doing, just some like longer form type thing, then I'll do that. If I want to do a quick little video, or maybe I talk about some recent gaming news, maybe I'll do those things. I don't know. I'm not going to really set expectations on that, because I think, to me, at where I'm at currently, I'm trying to not be so rigid. I want to be open to the possibilities of anything. I want to be open to a path that might emerge as I'm doing these things. And part of that comes from being in the present moment. I really fell off on meditating. I really just stopped meditating. And, I would meditate a couple times in a month, or 5 times in a month or something like that. Not on any regular basis. And I think that really started to take a toll on me. And when the coronavirus was at its peak, I was smoking so much weed to just get me through the monotony of just sitting at home. And I was working through the pandemic. In fact, I never really stopped working. The longest time that I had taken off from work was actually when I had to stay home because I thought I had COVID, and I didn't. Luckily, I tested negative. But then immediately after that, then my girlfriend's family got it. She somehow managed to not get it. I mean, she was really diligent. She wore masks indoors. She's isolated in her room. But yeah, so I mean, COVID is very real. Anybody who's denying this shit, no. I know people that had it, and my grandma had it. And my grandma, she was hospitalized. She was not put on a ventilator, but she was definitely in a tough spot, and she somehow managed to get through it. She did. She survived. And in that time as well, my other grandma on my dad's side, she passed away. So, this year has been not my favorite year, 2020. I really thought that it could only go up from 2019. I really did, because 2019 was rough. That was when I lost my grandpa, and that was on my mom's side, my grandpa. And nope, 2020, way worse. Way worse. And it's weird too, because it's on a paradox, because in some ways my life is a lot better. I definitely like my job a lot more than I liked it when I used to work at Apple. I definitely, I've been able to upgrade my stuff, right? My studio has really come together here. But then on the other hand, things in my personal life have been tougher. So it's a weird time. 2020 is a weird time. I'm very lucky to still be employed. I know how many people are out there and are hurting, and I feel your pain. I wish we had a government that gave a shit, but we don't. And the truth is that even with Joe Biden in there, he's going to care more, but it's still not going to probably be enough for the moment we're in. And that's the saddest part. We could have had Bernie. This could be us, but you playing, fuck. But I don't want to make this thing depressing, because I think, the way that I look at this, and especially with the COVID situation, is that this has revealed some deep flaws in our society, some major issues that certain people, like myself, have always been aware that we've had this problem. And by always, I mean since my political awakening in 2016. But certain people have definitely been aware of the injustices going in all of these different communities and the various ways that the elites have basically fucked all of us all the time. And I think now more people are waking up to that. So more normal people, more average people who maybe aren't as tuned in to politics or any of that, they're learning. And I think if nothing else, we are learning, and we are in the beginning stages of being able to fix it, right? One of the first steps is to acknowledge it, right? You have to acknowledge the problem before you can solve it. And one of the concepts that I was learning, I was listening to a podcast, and I don't remember which one it is off the top of my head right now, but I was listening to a podcast, and they were talking about Buddhism, and they were saying, the concept of right sight, right mind, right action. And this is something that's really been interesting to me because I think it really applies to my personal situation, as well as you could probably scale it up to the societal level, which is that for me personally, I'm finally seeing truthfully why I've been in the cycle I'm in, right? I didn't have the right sight. I wasn't seeing things for what they were. And now that I'm beginning to see that, I can then begin to change my mindset to match that newfound vision of the clarity of the situation. So when you have that right sight, you can then start thinking about the problem and thinking about solutions correctly. And then once you've got the right mindset, the right mind, then you can translate it to right action. That means then you're actually going to take actionable steps to resolve the issue or to make things happen that is more beneficial to you. And I think right now I'm only in the stage of right sight. I don't think that I've changed my mind or fixed my perspective on it just yet, but I'm now aware of it and I'm now catching myself in it. Another big concept that is kind of related to that is should. The concept of shoulding yourself to death. And this I think I got from an Aubrey Marcus podcast. But I should myself to death, dude. I really do. I'm always like, oh, well, I should be doing this. I should be doing that. I should be editing. I should be recording. I should be posting. I should myself to death, dude. I'm never in the moment because when I'm recording something, I'm thinking about editing it. And I'm thinking about posting it. And I'm always like 3 steps ahead of the moment I'm in. And so I'm never enjoying the moment that I'm in. And that's frustrating because it's like, well, half the fun of this is the process. Like half the fun is me figuring this out. It's me recording these things. It's me doing it. It's me taking the actions, taking the steps, learning something new, applying it to the next one, expanding my creativity and coming up with new ideas. Half the fun is that. So by me not being in the present moment and then shooting myself and shaming myself and feeling guilty, I was just like beating myself up constantly for this shit. And when you understand that context, I think you guys can understand why I was just not posting, because it was like I would think about all the steps required to succeed. And I think this is a weird dichotomy where, if you want to succeed at something, there is a level of seriousness that you do have to take to achieve it, right? You have to be disciplined. You do need to be consistent, and you do need to work at it, and you need to have an actionable plan, right? But what that fails to recognize is that not everything needs to be a business, and not everything needs to make you money. Not everything needs to be that serious. Some things can be a lesson that you learn, and that was all you needed from it, right? So for me, I don't think the podcast is something that's just a lesson to learn. I think there's a lot of lessons within the podcast, but it is something that I like doing, and it's something that I want to continue to do. But there might be other things that I try, that I test out, and determine later, you know what, that was a good lesson, but I don't think I really want to do this. But it was fun, and the idea of it seemed cool, and when I did it, maybe the reality wasn't as good, And I think we need to be more willing to accept that. We need to be more willing to accept that, you know what, sometimes not everything needs to be, your money-making side hustle. And I think America just has just this hustle culture that's just really toxic. It really leaves out a huge other part of the human experience, which is human connection. I forgot where I heard it from, but it's like the opposite of addiction is connection. And I think human connection is just so important. And it's something that we're now missing out on because of COVID. And for good reason, we do need to be careful. We need to be safe. There are really vulnerable people in our population, and we have to make sure that we take care of them. And we can't unnecessarily expose people that don't have the fight in them to survive this virus. And unfortunately, we have a lot of really selfish, individualistic people in America that refuse to even put a piece of cloth over their face, literally just because of convenience. They don't care that it kills grandma. They're like, well, I don't want to put this on my face because I don't like how it feels. I feel like I can't breathe. And these fucking people, these people are really delusional. These anti-mask people, fuck, man. it's really frustrating because you know it comes from just this sense of entitlement. Like it's 100% just entitled, selfish. Usually, I'm gonna be honest, usually white people. I mean, it's not always, but usually white people, and it comes from a place of privilege. Really, they've never had to be inconvenienced in their life. So now that we're finally telling them to, like, they're so stubborn that they're like, I'm not gonna do that. I don't want to wear a mask. That makes me feel uncomfortable. And it's like, dude, yeah, it makes you feel uncomfortable. Nobody likes this, but if it's gonna save lives, which has been proven to do. It's been proven that in all the countries where people wear masks, the cases go down, the deaths go down. Now, I don't know if the mask is like that effective at stopping the virus per se, but for whatever reason, when people wear them, it seems like it's at least keeping the cases down. So regardless of the effectiveness of the mask of actually containing the virus from you spreading it, because it's not about you protecting yourself, it's about you protecting other people, which is why, of course, that didn't sell well in America because people are fucking selfish. But it really is just, maybe it makes people more aware or more conscious. Like they see people wearing masks, so they keep the 6 feet distance. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but the correlation is there. And we need to wear masks, people. I mean, and some people have really disappointed me in this pandemic with their fucking points of view. I used to occasionally, not super regularly, but I used to occasionally appreciate JP Sears' videos because he would have these funny things where he was like self-aware and making fun of like new age spiritual people. And there's some fun to be made fun of there. I mean, I'm a spiritual dude. I don't really buy into crystals or anything like that. I think that stuff is maybe a little more pseudoscience, but hey, if it makes people feel better, by all means, I'm not going to tell you to stop. Do your fucking thing, man. I just don't think there's a lot of science to back up the crystals, but that doesn't matter. Regardless of that, because I believe in some pretty crazy shit, so I can admit that that's not a hill I'm willing to die on here. But he's been like a super anti-masker, and then he's like all in this like not trusting the science, and apparently he's got a history of this, and I didn't know that. But it's disappointing because like I thought he provided some cool videos, but like he really turned me off after that. When I could just tell, it's like I think people just like being contrarians, man. I really do. I think when people hear enough people going in one direction, they're like, you know what, I'm gonna go in the other direction. So for whatever reason, I don't know, anti-vaxxers, anti-maskers, these are people who, flat earthers, I would put them all in the same category. These are people who just like being part of the club, man. I think they just want to belong. And I think they maybe don't fuck with the mainstream of whatever, and they're just seeking some form of acceptance. I mean, and I think that's what we really need to understand. We need to be empathetic to people because people just want acceptance, man. We all just want to be accepted. We all just want to be loved. It's such a human thing. We want to feel like we're part of the community. We want our connection, and there's nothing wrong with that. There is something wrong with killing people indirectly or directly by not taking proper precautions during a pandemic. I mean, Jesus Christ. But there's nothing wrong with wanting to be accepted or to look for groups with like-minded things. There's nothing wrong with that. There are some dangers, though, that have come from that. Okay. In addition to all of this stuff, another thing that has also, I think, been plaguing me, that was really enlightening to learn about, is I watched this documentary called The Social Dilemma. And if anybody has seen it, highly recommend you see it. I understand tech companies. I really have. I worked for one. I worked for one of the largest ones in the world. And I always understood ads and tracking. But I feel like that documentary gives you such a more like visual understanding of it, and they do these really funny skits where they like pretend to be the app, and they have a bunch of like people in like a room. It's like the same dude, and he's like feeding up ads and like sending it in a certain way, and you kind of see how the algorithm works behind the scenes, more or less. They humanize it with human beings doing it, but obviously it's an algorithm that's kind of like, basing off of your interests or whatever, of like, ooh, he looked at that ad for 6 seconds. Cool. Like, we'll send him more like that later, And I think you get a really good understanding of it. And it made me realize that I'm addicted to social media, and I have been. And I open the apps way too many times a day, and I let notifications dominate my life. And I am really happy that now, after, they give you a bunch of advice at the end of it. And one of the pieces of advice was like turn off notifications. So I turned off notifications for all the apps. The only things I have notifications on now for are like phone calls and text messages. But Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all that, I just turn notifications off because I don't want it calling my attention when I don't really need to. When I want to open the app, I'll open the app. But I don't want the thing just like poking me, especially because I would get notifications that were like bullshit just to get me to open the app. Like Facebook would just be like, they would say I had a notification, I would open it up, and then it would be like, build your audience for the cosmic perspective, or, whatever. And I'm like, dude, that's not a notification. That's just you saying you want me to pay you money to advertise, which I've only done like once. So I'm just like, dude, fuck that. So after I've turned that off, I really do open the apps less, and I definitely am on my phone less, which I think is really important. I think that was also part of my mental health, was like, in addition to wanting to seek validation from people through my content, I was also seeking validation through the social media and, posting stuff and wanting to get likes and whatever. And it's just the wrong motivations, man. I mean, I think at the end of the day, that's just what it was. So, I'm in a place where I don't know that it's not like I feel great. It's not like I'm like, oh yeah, I'm super happy and I'm not going to put on a fucking fake face for you, man. This has been a really hard year for me, and this has been quite a journey that I've been on. But it has been rewarding, and the deeper I go into myself and search within my heart for, the type of person I want to be and what I want to do, the harder it gets. The bigger the demons, the more clever they are, the more hidden they are, for sure, and the darker my vision. But one of the things that I can say is that, a little bit of light can eliminate a lot of darkness, and I just want to be an illumination, man. I just want to light up a little section of darkness in this world, and if somebody gets some value out of what I'm doing, then it's doing its job. And I'm doing this for me as a cathartic thing and something that I enjoy doing, but I'm also doing it for you. I want, ideally, in an ideal world, I want people to get value out of this. I don't want people to just listen to me and blindly follow me. I don't want that. I want you guys all to be critical thinkers. I want you to call me out if I say something stupid. I also don't want to be canceled for making a mistake. I think that's where we have a bit of a problem in our culture, where we're like, for some people do some things that are really egregious, and I don't think anything is ever not redeemable, but, some people deserve to be punished for a little bit of time. But, we should allow people to learn and grow from their stuff. And as long as they demonstrate a true recognition of the problem and a true growth from it, right? Like, when somebody's being authentic and when they've really learned. So, I'm not going to be a perfect ally, okay? Like I said earlier, like Black Lives Matter, I support, all the social justice movements. I really do. I also think sometimes the people advocating for these things end up hurting their cause, because they're just like, and I'm not saying you got to be nice about it, right? For certain things, you got to put your fucking foot down, and that's the only way you ever get something done. But there is a way to do it that will be more convincing to more people. And I think right now, like, the strategy and the optics of the left is not good, even though the policies are really popular. And I think that disconnect is huge, and is the reason why the left has not built a successful enough movement in America, because we pick these really fringe issues and we are really vocal about those issues, but it's like, that's not the biggest fish to fry, and that's not the thing you're going to get the most people to agree on. And I think you need to start with the battles that seem like the most important and the most likely to get done. The rest of the cultural stuff, dude, that will come with people raising their consciousness. That will come with people getting smarter and getting more aware. And we can bring in that awareness. But shaming people for things that they didn't know, that they were ignorant of, but that doesn't mean that they're dumb, okay? People who don't know this stuff, they have a life. They have other things to worry about. We can't have everybody be super knowledgeable about all these social justice issues. I mean, it's not possible. Not to mention, it's fucking stressful, dude. The more I think about that stuff, the more it stresses me out. The more I think about the pain and suffering in the world, the more I feel that pain and suffering in my life, and that's too much for us to take. We were never designed to be able to take in the level of information that we have here in America, or really just that we have in the world right now that we can get from the internet. It's just too much. It's information overload. We have to pick just a few issues that we really care about and like put a real effort towards those things, and trust in the process that there are other people who will be interested in the other issues, and they will be in it enough to be able to cover all of that. And the truth is that there's plenty of people for every single issue. There's plenty of people who are diehard enough to move the needle on it. But we need to organize, and we need to be more effective, and we need to know where power is, and we need to seek out that power, and we need to take it. And we need to do it in the smartest ways, right? We need to figure out what committees do we need to be a part of. Which districts are the most important for us to elect? Which judges do we need to get out who are, over sentencing our people of color? So there are so many ways that we could be a lot more effective as a movement, that I would love to see more true strategy and understanding of power and how it works, and also understanding messaging. There's just certain issues that are really popular that you got to just nail on those, run on the things that people care about. You can't run on some really abstract or obscure issue that, like, yes, it's important, but like, come on guys, priorities, So the left actually has won a lot of good primaries that were challenging incumbents who were not good representatives, who were not real Democrats or like blue dog Democrats. So it's nice to see that a lot of progressives have won the primaries, and some of those are likely to win the general just because they're in a state that, like, it always goes D. So I'm excited to see the long-term game where it appears that the progressive people are starting to get a lot more traction, and they do really well. And with enough name recognition and enough support, at a certain point, you have enough people in Congress, you can start killing bills, that maybe aren't serving the people, or you can get amendments put in that actually will be like good extra things, because you could withhold your vote, even to people of your own party who are like part of the, the corporate Democrats and the sellouts and stuff. So I think we can do it. I think despite all the craziness and the chaos and Donald Trump basically trying to strip our democracy of being a democracy, which it already was an oligarchy anyway, I think this is the moment of, like, it has to get worse before it gets better. But I do think it will get better. And maybe that's the optimist in me. Maybe I'm being delusional. But if we don't have any sort of hope, then, why are we even trying? We have to have hope. We have to cling to something. We got to believe in something. It really is important to believe in something. And for me, I believe in, what does MLK say, that the arc of justice or whatever it is, it bends towards justice. Dude, I hate when I butcher quotes, but I'm not Jason Silva, dude. Jason Silva could fucking remember every quote from every book he's ever read. I can't do that. I can do that with lyrics, though. So yeah, man. So I think right now I'm really happy that I have come to this moment of clarity and understanding of some flaws within my own thinking and my own perspective. And despite all the work that I had done and all these things that I thought that I knew or I thought I understood, to still realize that I didn't know anything and I still have an incomplete picture. But hey, that's part of it, right? We're human. And we are never going to know everything, and we're not always going to know what the next best answer is or the next best step to take. But as long as we're seeking, and as long as we take a moment to listen, and to listen to your heart and not your mind, you'll find that answer, So yeah. So I might just drop this podcast today. We'll see. Thank you all for listening. Please like, subscribe, all the social media stuff. Follow me on all the stuff. I can't say that I'll pay attention to notifications anymore, but for sure I will try to be engaged with my audience. And if you guys want to start discussions and stuff in the comment section, I really appreciate that. I want your guys' feedback. I want a dialogue. I want a community here. And, that starts with engagement, and that starts with people, listening to ideas and talking about them, whether they're in agreement or disagreement. I want to hear it all. I would prefer you to not be an unnecessary hater and just be like, this sucks, because that doesn't help anything. It's just like, did it even help you to write it? I don't know. But if you do have some interesting counterpoints or some things that you've learned in your life or some insights that you would like to share, then share it in the comments. For real, I will read the comments on YouTube. So I appreciate you all. Thanks again. Peace out, heavy mommies. See you. I don't want to say next week because I don't know. See you when I post my next episode.